Anytime.
Perry, welcome to the Front Row Dads podcast, man.
Hey, how's it going? Hope things are doing well in your world, John.
Well, right now, I'll give you a little context. My parents are visiting. They've been here for 7 days. They're going to be here for another 3. My mother-in-law is living with me. In addition to my parents visiting, my 2 kids have been out on spring break, and my wife is on day 8 of how many days? 60 days in Peru. So
you want to come visit me in Vegas?
So I was wondering if we could go grab a beer after this.
Yeah, you could say you can come out to Vegas and hang out with Uncle Perry. It'll be a good break for you.
Yeah, man. So that's what's real in my world right now, man. What's present for you, man? What's going on, like literally right now in this phase of life?
Well, I'm old. Getting old sucks. Getting old sucks. But I don't know if I would go. Well, yeah, I would. Would I go back to being young and dumb? Probably. But I don't know. It's good. Business is really, really good right now. Personal life's pretty good. Kids are almost all out of the house. I had them all out for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, I get one back every now and then. I said earlier, they're like boogers you can't flick off, right? But I love them. I'm glad they're there. No, it's good, man. I live in Las Vegas, which is kind of a weird place to live. People are like, how do you live in Las Vegas? But I don't really live in Las Vegas. I live about 15 to 20 miles off the strip. So I'm a good distance away. And if you were I live in a golf course community that's gated, you would think you were in Atlanta or Dallas or anywhere else. I just like it here because it's centrally located. I can move around a lot. And a lot of people come to see me. I don't have to go see a lot of people. There's people in Vegas for whatever reason, multiple times a year. So I get to see most of my friends without having to run around to chase them. And, life's pretty good. This AI stuff has been, I've been at AI since 2019. I've been telling people I spoke in 2019 on AI, but I didn't. I spoke in 2020 on AI at TNC. I had my years mixed up. But in 2020, I did a whole talk on AI and robotics and no code platforms and stuff like that. And nobody paid any attention. And now, all of a sudden there's a chat bot and everybody goes nuts over AI. Like it's the newest thing, but we've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now. So you've been watching for a while. Yeah. And I've got a bunch of other business holdings. I've got a factory here, 24,000 foot laser cutting, printing factory here, another one in Dallas that does bath and body products, candles, scented products, and a software company and a staffing company and
how many businesses have you been directly an owner in, participating in building, scaling directly? How many over the years? Can you count that high?
I don't know, but I've taken 11 to 20 million or more.
Yeah. That's really cool.
11 to 10 million or more. 11 to 10 million or more. I think 6 to 20 million and 2 or 3 to 30 million right before they all blew up. I don't do well after about 30 million. I have to get out or I have to sell or jump out or whatever because I don't function well at that. Maybe it's a mental block for me, right? But it's not fun anymore. It gets to be about C-suites and money management and risk mitigation and all those things that as a hard charging entrepreneur just suck and you don't want to think about, right? It's like why NASCAR drivers don't go to funerals or hospitals because you don't want to think about that stuff. I mean, when you're growing a business, I prefer to not have to think about that. If I can get people that can do it for me, when you're at a certain level, you can pay people to do that for you. And it's not really that big a deal. And once you reach a different level, that kind of takes over as the primary focus of everything you do is how do I not lose money versus how do I make money?
Exactly. I've heard you say that your sweet spot, and maybe you didn't use that term, but is like 2 to 20 million growing a company.
2 to 20 guy. I'm a 2 to 20 guy. Yeah, I'm a 2 to 20 guy. So ideally, I like to come into a business I've started a lot, right? Yeah. But I prefer now to come into a business that's doing about 2 million a year and they've been kind of stuck there for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Don't know how to go out, because the hardest part, man, is the hardest part of business is that, 0 to 1 is hard, right? And then getting to a couple $1,000,000, I mean, below a couple $1,000,000 for the most part, to me, is not really much of a business, because not that you can't make a living that way, but a convenience store does $2 million a year, one, right? So, I mean, if you have if I have $1 million business, it's like big whoop, so does every burger restaurant, right? So, to me, a couple $1,000,000, if you figured out how to get to a couple $1,000,000 gross, I've found that I can usually figure out how to get you from there to 10 or 20 in 24 months or so, usually.
Yeah.
Because you got something going on already,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
yeah, it's really hard if you got a concept, you got an unproven concept. And like, I ask people all the time, so what are you going to do this year? Well, I'm going to make $10 million. How are you going to do it? Well, I'm going to start my business and do, well, you don't have a damn clue what you're going to make. That's not a goal. That's a pipe dream. You gotta be able to back up some stats and some figures, and I invest in these businesses. I put my money in them. So
What is it about what is it about 2 million though? Is it that they have processes built? Is it that they have extra capital maybe to invest in marketing? Is it they have years of data? What is it that gives you the edge?
But they got lucky.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they just got lucky. They stumbled across something, and not always, right? But 9 times out of 10, if it's the only business they have, they tried something and it worked. Or maybe they tried 10 things and one thing worked, right? But I've gotten at 2 million, you've gotten past, so much of the experimentation phase, right? And you've moved into more of the scale phase. Like you got a proof of concept, you've got a minimum viable product, and you've established, hopefully, some metrics of what it costs to acquire a customer, how long it takes to get back your acquisition cost, and what the value of that customer is over a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month, 24-month period. And if you go to an investor like me and you say, look, I can buy a customer for X and I can make XX from them over this period of time. And then maybe when we go to exit, depending on how the exit market is, most exit markets are tied to customer value. So on exit, each one of those customers is going to be worth XXXX, then that's ideal for me. Because if I can bring capital to the table, I can bring expertise to the table, help optimize offers. That's kind of the stuff that I do. And I don't do it very often. I've got 11 total holdings right now, and I own 6 of them outright. So I only have 4 minority holdings.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. The 6 I don't own outright. I own a above minority share, right? My ideal business is over the next couple of years, as I start to think about retirement, I guess, is I'd rather own a minority.
I didn't believe what you just said.
Right. I didn't believe it when I said it. But my ideal is to own, those 10 or 11 holdings, but only own minority interest shares of them.
Yeah.
And because, you're a young man, you've got energy and drive that as you get older diminishes, but it sucks because as your energy and your drive diminishes, you get older, your wisdom is much, much greater.
Yeah.
So ideally, at this season of my life, as they say, the best thing that I can do is be the old guy in the room that says, hold on before you do that.
Yeah.
I've done it 7 times and it blew up 8 times, because there's a lot of stuff that you over time, you learn, because, when you're, I don't know how old you are. I'm not picking on you for being young. I have no idea, but
I'm 47, by the way. So I appreciate it.
Okay. So you look a lot younger than that.
Thank you.
But you're, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Oh, for sure.
I constantly say, one of my favorite sayings is, I can't believe how stupid I was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
you learn things that as you move along in life, not from your successes, but from your getting knocked on your ass so
That's
many
right.
times. Right? Just
Speaking of being young and getting knocked on your ass,
eventually get tired of that.
You were kicked out of junior high, right?
Oh,
I've been
kicked out of I've been kicked out of a lot of stuff. Yeah.
That's an interesting part of your story. And I want to weave together a couple of things, because what you do now is amazing, but I want to talk about childhood for a moment too, because I think that it'd be interesting to think about your life as a kid, both what mentors you did have or mentorship you wish you had or that was not present. But, when I think about, you being scrappy and getting stuff done and being this creative entrepreneur, that was very much, as I've heard you talk about before, it was sort of born into you. I mean, there's a nature element here that I've heard you talk about, but also you made some decisions to just, you weren't built like other people, you've said. Talk to me about who you were at that age.
I don't, I couldn't tell you why I'm built the way that I am, but I still wake up every morning optimistic of the day, right? And I can get the snot kicked out of me all day long the day before, and I typically wake up the next morning dusted off, ready to go to do battle. I grew up really, really poor. My mom was a nurse's aide in a nursing home, literally the crappiest job a human can have, changing bedpans for people and doing it for minimum wage. And I recently, just really recently realized, somebody asked me a question on a podcast, like, what motivated you to make so much money? And the answer is nothing. What motivated me was not being poor.
Yeah.
I watched my mom suffer with poverty my whole childhood, and I watched how it can just tear people apart and kill their spirit and all that. And I didn't really want to be rich, but I was determined I wasn't going to be poor. And I don't know, I just had this burning curiosity about me. I was always I did get kicked out of junior high school for selling stuff in school. I quit school 2 weeks before graduation from high school because I was taking so much time off to go do business stuff that I still had great grades, but they were not going to let me walk with my class because I didn't have the attendance number.
Right.
That attendance number. And I remember going into my principal, and I'm not proud of this, by the way. If their children listen to this, I certainly wouldn't say to follow my path. But I went in and I made $88,000 my senior year of high school. By the time that was roughly halfway through the year, because it was about time for graduation, and I'd already made $88,000. And I asked my dean when I went in to have this big conference, how much money did you make last year? And I'd already made almost twice as much as the dean of my school made within the first 6 months of the year. And I said, yeah, I think I'm going to be okay. I think I'll just take a pass. And that was stupid. It was really a stupid thing to do. I should have completed. And not everything comes down to how much money you make. But when you're making that much money, and you're young, and you think you're really smart. The weird part was 2 years later, I made $800,000.
Wow.
So before I could legally buy a beer, I had more money in the bank than probably 99% of humans in the United States, because I had most of that money in cash. And then the next year I was bankrupt because I didn't know how to manage. Nobody at 18, 19 years could make $800,000. Right. And I went broke and climbed back up and went broke again and climbed back up. And eventually the time between screwing up, those times became further and further apart. And in between, there's some real times of success. But I was always willing to take insane risks then.
Yeah.
I probably take less risks today than I definitely take less risks. Because I read somewhere once, the definition of an entrepreneur is a person who's willing to risk everything every day. And I took that literally, and I felt like it was my duty to do that, which is just stupid. It's a dumb quote, right? You really shouldn't do that, right? But I think when you have very little to lose, it's a great time to gamble.
Sure.
You know, when you're young, and I'm really good friends with Damon John, and he and I have spent a lot of time, talking, because we come from similar backgrounds, poverty and single mom and all that. And he wrote a book called The Power of Broke, and it's actually, the book's okay. The concept of the book's terrific. It just basically says that when you're young and you're broke and you're stupid, you got darn little to lose, right?
Yeah.
So great opportunity. But I had an old man that worked across from where my mother had another job. She had two jobs, and one of them was as a waitress at this restaurant, and we couldn't afford childcare. So when I was about 10 years old or 11 years old, I'd go to work with my mom, and there was it was in a hotel, and across from the hotel was a really nice kind of over like retirement based place. And there was an old guy that used to sit on the front porch named Mr. Clark White. I'll never forget him as long as I live. And he'd read the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times every day. And I used to go sit with him and try to learn business. And he would hand me the sections of the paper and to read. And he taught me how to read a financial. I never really was a big markets guy, but he taught me how to read the markets. And he just kind of took me to wing. So when you have that opportunity to mentor to somebody, you never know what's going to happen to that kid. Mr. White died when I was still really young, but he would probably be surprised to find out that was a real pivotal time for me.
What do you think what was it about that? Was it what he was doing? Was it how he treated you? Did he see something in you? Was it, what was it?
I saw him as a gentleman. I
Mhm.
grew up in Paducah, Kentucky, right? And not a lot of gentlemen in Paducah, Kentucky, but I grew up in this little town, and Mr. White had been a metropolitan life insurance agent. That's how he'd made all of his money. And he was retired. He always dressed nice. He had a really nice Cadillac, which was a big deal in a little town. And he was always happy and jovial and peaceful. And I didn't experience any of that in my childhood. I had an alcoholic stepfather who was abusive, and everybody was always broke and complaining about money and not enough money for gas and not enough money for food. I mean, really basics, living hand to mouth. And Mr. Clark didn't have any of those problems. He had planned well, he had retired well, he'd set aside plenty of money, and he was a widower, but he was always happy, and he had friends, and he played cards, and he liked a kid hanging around. Because I was like a little sponge, right? And I think he liked having somebody to pass on, his kind of. He hadn't been wildly successful, but he had been successful, so that was good for me. And I've met a few people like that along the way in life, that certain lessons that have just two or three really moments my whole life that have been like, that was really a big deal. I really learned a lot from that.
Did you ever have a relationship with your biological father?
No,
And does that
only met him twice.
twice? And is that something that's still, how do you talk to your kids about that relationship or lack thereof?
I don't.
Yeah.
We really never talked about it. I've always been, I made a lot of mistakes as a parent. I've been very, I think I've provided too much of a net for my kids.
Mm.
They've all, they all know that they can only fall so far, and I'm going to probably scoop them up. And, I've done that enough times that I think for some of them, probably a good thing. My girls were never really relied on me for that, but my boys have it's been different. Boys are very different than girls, by the way.
Yeah.
I'd rather have girls all day long. Really would. They bicker and fight, but they don't get in trouble. Yeah, I'd got a saying about that, but I can't say it here.
Yeah.
But there's boys will just screw themselves up.
Mhm.
You're always trying to keep your the joke is if you can keep your daughters off the pole and you keep your boys out of jail, you've won, right? That's the thing. And man, I'll tell you, boys are hard because they get, especially as a dad, being a single dad and being primary parent to all my kids really at one time or another, because through 2 divorces and I always got the kids, right? And you know, girls tend to have a better dynamic with dads, and they have problems usually with their moms, right? If they're going to have a dynamic issue. And boys tend to have dynamic issues with their dads. And the boys have been, at one time or another, they were very rebellious. And then as they're aging up a little bit, they're coming out of that. They're coming around, So it's kind of nice. But there's a few years in there that are rough.
How did raising kids change you? Yeah. How did it change you?
Oh my gosh. In every possible way. I had twins right before my 21st birthday. I had twin girls. So I've joked that I've had kids since I was a kid. So 14 years later, I had 2 more, not twins, but 14 months apart. So like another set of twins. So that's extended the parenting period for another, the joke is 18 years. That's hilarious. I wish that was true. There's an old line Jason Robards had in that movie, Parenthood. I don't know if you ever saw that movie or not, but he says,
long time ago.
He said, I thought these kids, they're 18, they're out. I'd be done by now. And Jason Robards laughs at Steve Martin. He says, he said, parenting is like your Aunt Edna's ass. It just gets bigger and bigger every year. It's like the responsibility gets bigger and bigger every year, And they don't have little problems when they have them. They have big problems,
Exactly.
You're still a parent. You're never not a parent. So, but it's just a lot. It's kept me from taking certain risks that I probably would have taken that might have resulted in great things or might have resulted in disaster. I don't know. I think that, I know that your group is, heavily about parenting as a dynamic of business. I think it's probably the hardest thing in the world to do. When you look at people like Hemingway, who was a terrible parent, but he was able to devote 100% of his time to what he did. And he just shirked off that responsibility, which does that make him a good human? Probably not. Does it make him an amazing writer? Yeah. Maybe he would have been without it, but you see so many people like that, like Chris Christopherson, the songwriter, just got in his car one day to go get a pack of cigarettes and didn't go home for a year because he went to Nashville to become famous. Sometimes, a lot of great successful people have been really bad parents. Logan Roy, for instance, if you're familiar with him, I'm joking. It's from the show Succession. He's a terrible parent.
No, I don't know.
You got to watch that show. It's great.
Is it good? Is it good?
Oh, it's amazing. The most amazing. But I promise you, of all the things that I say, they're going to be, your listeners are going to go, I love Logan Roy. That'll be the one thing they'll remember out of all this, right? But yeah, it's really changed me a lot. I don't know what my path would have been.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful to have had the kids that I have. I don't want any more, but I'm grateful to have the ones that I got.
Sure.
Are there times I just want to strangle them? You bet, but I know I can lean on them and they know that they can lean on me. And we're at that point now, we're more friends than, anything.
That's cool. What do you think is the key to your relationship with them right now at this, stage and age? So in their 20s and 30s.
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't want to give anybody, don't take anything I say as advice. Cause
your personal experience.
I don't think I've been a good parent. Like I said, I've let them get away with a lot of stuff. So they tend to be, they're not really lazy. I don't want to say that. They're all, one of my daughters is the webmaster for the United States Department of Trade. She's went on to do really well. One of my daughters does media management, traffic management. She's got a super high IQ and great statistician. One of my boys is a waiter in Austin, Texas, but he makes $100,000 a year waiting tables right now. And
It's amazing. Yeah.
other one's a fitness influencer and does really, really well. They're all doing well, right? In my relationship with them, I don't ask them a lot. I don't judge anything that they do. And I always tried to get, I'll tell you a funny story. So one of my daughters, when she was like 15 or 16, she's in high school. And she comes to me one day, says, "Hey, Dad, I want to go to this party Tuesday night at so-and-so's house, some girl's house." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Is that the girl that," she said, "Can I go?" And I said, "Well, if you want to, I guess." And is that the girl that, you said, thought she was pregnant last year and was all freaked out? And, "Yeah, but she's different now." And da, 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 da. I said, "Well, who else is going?" "Well, this person's going or that person's going." I said, "Didn't that kid get a DUI for driving?" Because they used to tell me everything because I was very open and want to talk to him. And then finally, after 3 or 4 things, she just stomps her foot down and she says, "I just wish one time you'd just tell me no." And I just puffed off because I'd always try to
Yeah.
get them to draw their own conclusion. Like, is this really who you want to hang out with?
Yeah.
Is this, what you're trying to do? And that's always been my methodology. It has not always worked very well,
Yeah.
but I've
Well,
always tried.
I appreciate that vulnerability, because I think that we can relate more to that feeling, Perry, of like, hey, when I look right now at my kids 13 and 8, I can look back and I can think, man, there's so many things I wish I would have done better as a dad. Many people would look in and go, "But Jon, we see the pictures, we hear the stories. You're the leader of Front Row Dads. You're a great dad." And I think that in some ways I probably am. There are some things I've done right, that I'm proud of. But there's also a lot of stuff I look back and I'm like, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would change a bunch of stuff. And I think that that's a common experience for men. I know my dad, who's in his mid 70s, will talk to me often about how he feels that he really did not deliver in the dad department. He was a captain in the Navy and, he provided, but he didn't feel like he was there emotionally and didn't spend enough time with us, moved us around all the time and so on. So I just really appreciate you being honest about all that. And hey, you've got 4 kids. It's pretty amazing.
Oh man, I got four in there, and I got a grandson now. So
that's cool.
5. So as a matter of fact, he'll turn 5 in May. May the 4th be with you. May 4th. He was born May 4th. So yeah, it's interesting. Granddaddy's interesting, and I'm not as involved a granddad as I thought I'd be. I'd love to be more. It's weird, you go through a period. I think I parented for so long. I'm like, bleh, parenting, but it's a good time. It's a good time to finally sit back and think about a little bit more of like what I want to do now. Balance of my days, what hasn't been used up so far, what am I going to do with the rest of it?
Let's talk.
Kids are good.
Let's one quick question on the kids, and then I want to transition to how we got introduced. Actually, was that I had reached out to somebody. I was very interested in the AI and the Chat GPT world, and they said, "You got to talk with Perry," and that was our mutual friend Qasim. I want to get into that, and I want to talk about that as it relates to buying back our time, as it relates to scaling businesses, as it relates to growing from 2 to 20 million. So I want to get to that. But before we take that very hard pivot into that conversation, maybe no good bridge other than to just jump into it. Let's just end on the kid piece with, how are you thinking about wealth and kids? Because as a man who's accumulated some significant wealth in your life, how are you thinking about that as it relates to your kids and family?
Well, the biggest thing for me is I realize that most of my kids, at least right now, don't have any interest in business. I think largely because they saw me work so hard and put in so many hours and be sacrificed so much. I think they probably feel like it really wasn't worth it. So they don't have a great interest in business. One of them does, 1.5. 1.5 does right now. I mean, they may change as they mature and they get older and, whatever, we'll see. So I don't think you can necessarily decide, well, I'm going to teach my kids my business and that'll be my legacy to them. I recorded a product called a secret selling system some years back, and it's the best thing I ever did. 100%. You
Yeah.
can't buy it, I don't think, but people bootleg it all over the place. If you go to the
Oh.
bootleg, you can find it. And it was really just everything I learned about business in 30 years. And I did it to give it to my kids. I don't think any of them have watched it. Not a single one. And I did this when I set out to do the thing. It was, I'm going to do this to give it to my kids. So if I kick the bucket tomorrow, they'll know how the old man can go out and make a couple $1 million a year running his mouth, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think they care. One of my daughters is coming back around now, going, because she sees me do these events sometimes, and she's processing money in the back of the room, and we're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and she's like, it just ticks me off that you get paid this much money. It ticks me off. It ticks me off that you could get all you want for free and you just won't listen, So we're both upset, right? Yeah. So as far as wealth goes, I don't know, right now I'm set to leave them, a substantial amount of money over a period of time, but it's not enough for them to be, completely comfortable. I don't want to do, I think that would be a unfair thing.
Isn't that, is there an old Rockefeller quote that's like, leave them so that leave them enough so they can do anything, but not so they can do nothing?
Yeah. I don't know how you achieve that. That sounds nice. Somebody said the other day, I was on one of the Clubhouse calls last year, and says, Perry, the niches are in the riches. What do you think of that? I said, I think it rhymes.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know that it means anything, It just things that rhyme tend to really catch on,
Yeah.
Or if Rockefeller says it really catches on.
Something romantic about the notion of something being that simple, right?
Yeah. It's like, just build that wall, right? It's like, just give me a simple solution to a super complex problem, give me a kindergarten solution to it. Right. Nothing against that, not getting political, but sometimes people really gravitate to a kindergarten solution to a collegiate level problem. And most of the time they're not nearly that simple. I I hope that my kids find what brings them joy, and if I can give them a little money that helps to ease their life along the way doing that, or if they decide to take, whatever they get from me and multiply it into something bigger or better, God bless, I'm there to help them. But right now they seem to be less interested. Yeah. And it'll be really disappointing for you, by the way, as an entrepreneurial dad, to find that out. You really will, because you got a kid, my 8-year-old's going to be a monster, and it might be that he's into ballet or baseball by the time, he gets around to that age and has no interest at all in the business. It just depends. I'd say, and it's actually a good thing, because one of the things I have realized over time, only about 2% of people actually should be in business. Right. About 5 to 10% are, only about 2% should be. And when you're trying to fit your kid, whose odds are in the 98th percentile, but you think because they came from your loins, they should be, Musk out of the chute, right? Sure. You're really setting them up for against the odds expectation, right? Because it requires a certain degree of risk tolerance, pattern recognition, things that not everybody has, nor does everybody want. One of my daughters, I promise you, I couldn't run fast enough to give her a business. If it made $1 million a year, she doesn't want anything to do with it. She's got her life engineered the way that she wants it engineered. Sure. And out of all my kids, she's the happiest one, right? So far be it me to push that envelope.
Oh, that's great. Let's take this as an opportunity to pivot. All right, so let's talk about something that I think you're having some fun with, and I'm speculating and I'm saying these words for you, but It seems to me you're having fun with this. You're an incredibly curious person. These are things that I know about you from listening to you, from witnessing your life as an entrepreneur. And I'm very, very interested in the world of AI and Chat GPT. And the reason I'm interested is twofold. one, what I need to know as a dad about what's happening in that space, of what my kids are getting access to and how this might change the landscape for them in their world. But also I'm interested in it as an entrepreneur, of how I might use this tool to buy back time so I can spend more, so I can invest more at home. So with that, can I just open up to a big, broad question that you can take anywhere you want, Perry, which is, what do you think about this whole world right now? What's exciting you about it? What's fascinating you? What are you excited to teach? What are you excited to learn? And maybe we can take it from there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, really in my life, when I started out, I entered the specialty retail business right as the first push carts and kiosks were ever put into malls. And that was my first success round. I killed it. And then I got into manufacturing and importing, just as importing and manufacturing became accessible to people that it normally wasn't accessible to. And then I started my internet career in 1996, about 9 months after Jeff Bezos started Amazon. In fact, Jeff Bezos called me to buy a company from me, called me on the phone.
No
And
way.
I laughed because his company was losing so much money. He wanted to buy me with worthless stock. True story. It's about a $750 million mistake last time I checked.
Oh, geez.
And then nothing else has really come along since then, really, that has been earth shattering, that I felt like I needed to go all in on in 20 years, and then along comes AI and robotics and no code and all that over the last 3 or 4 years. And I've been involved in the AI space since the launch of Jasper, which was in 2019, and which was Jarvis then. Before that, it was called something else. Forget what they called it before Jarvis. And then they got threatened to be sued by Disney, I guess, or Warner Brothers or whoever. So I just saw it as definitely the next, quote unquote, the next big thing. And I think really it's the way bigger next big thing than any of the other next big things have been. There are times that where I've been successful, I get into specialty retail because when I got into specialty retail before, if you want to be in retail, well, you had to build a store, bricks and mortar, put in hundreds of thousands of dollars for the inventory. And well, when people started putting in push carts and kiosks and stuff like that in malls, just that wall of that barrier of entry came crashing down, right? And when I got into importing and manufacturing, before, you couldn't go to China. Before, you had to go to Hong Kong, you had to go through a trader, and all that system had broke down, and manufacturing had equipment had gotten a lot less. And I was able to get into that business just as the barrier of entry went from millions of dollars to maybe $100,000 you could get in the business. The internet, again, it made you a specialty retailer of something. Like I owned dryraceboard.com, rubberstamps.com, all these things when I started off with all these e-commerce properties, that I kind of had set a set of rules of, give me something to sell that people don't have local accessibility to, but have a specialty need for, that cost over $500 and yada, yada, yada. And I ran this set of rules and started building properties up. And I could build a property for a few $1,000s that would make more money than $1 million store would. So it was quite obvious to me what to do, right? And that was a really great run for me, with a few bumps along the road. And then now with this, it's a much bigger shift. Everything that we know as life right now will absolutely be completely different in less than 12 months, and in 24 months, 36 months, 48 months. 6 and 1 and pick 'em, of who's right, who's wrong. But everyone agrees on one thing: nothing will be even remotely the same, because not to use bad language, but I always say you can't put the shit back in the horse. I mean, this thing is out there, right? you're not going to be able to put the genie back in the bottle. It's not going to happen. So, as far as your kids are concerned, wow, I don't know. I'm teaching my kids, I'm almost like force feeding them AI stuff because they desperately need to know it. And believe it or not, they're kind of resistant to it, which is weird, especially my kids that see themselves as creative because they feel like it somehow diminishes their creativity.
Takes them,
Yeah, but one of my kids is a grand musician but he can master music now you can literally use Adobe AI mastering and master a song for 99 cents. That used to cost $5,000.
Right.
Master a track. And, you can do it now beautifully for $1, and he just hates that idea. He still wants to master his own tracks. I'm like, really? So it's weird. So I think it's going to change things for them. If Sam Altman is a really good person to listen to, I think, as far as what he thinks is going to happen. And he had some really interesting insights recently that, infinite intelligence will be available to all of us within 12 to 24 months. Just like infinite information is.
Define infinite intelligence.
Well, infinite information was the internet, right? So it's an infinite amount of information. But intelligence is different than information. Intelligence helps you to sort, sift, and define parallels in that information, right? So the problem with AI right now, the benefit to AI and the problem to AI are the same thing. It knows everything from everybody, and the problem is it knows everything from everybody. So when you look at AI, it's modeled off all information. So that means it's modeled off idiots and geniuses, right?
Right.
So, as the models refine and get better and better and better, just like search engines became better and better and better, delivering you the informational result that you wanted, the AI is going to be better and better. And the AI doesn't work the way most people believe it works. It's not at all what most people think it is. And I think that the hardest thing for people right now is not the skill set of using it, but it's opening up the space between their ears to allow themselves to think in a way to where they can take the most advantage of the technology. It is just a tool. It augments what your abilities are. AI in and of itself is really not, I'd say it's not that impressive a tool, but it's how can I say it? And I'll challenge a question to you that I've challenged a lot to people that I like a lot, but AI is just a brain in a jar, right? It has no arms, legs, ears, eyes. It can't do anything. AI can only think and analyze problems. In fact, until there was ChatGPT, nobody cared about OpenAI. But when you tied a chat bot to it, right? The bot portion is where it's at, because a robot, a soft robot, or a physical like robot, can actually take something that AI thinks and then take an action on it. Right? AI in and of itself can't take any action. It has no appendages. It is just a brain in a jar. So when you think of it that way, it helps you you don't have to fear it. It can't do anything, right? Everybody fears it. It can't really do anything. But what it can do is think really, really well. But it's not what people think that it is. Like, for instance, did you know that all of OpenAI will fit on the thumb drive?
Really?
The whole thing.
That's crazy.
There's no database. There's no database to AI. It trains. So it's different. So it's like, if you're are you from the military, maybe?
No, father is.
You said your dad was, yeah. So like if you're a Navy SEAL, right? Well, you got the Navy SEAL handbook, right? That you commit to memory, maybe, right? But that's not what you're drawing back on when you charge a front or whatever, you're going back on training. So the AI is a brain that's trained with neural connections that it just remembers how things connect. It learns like we learn. Like nobody gave us a manual on how to walk when we were a baby. We just watched other people. We had a natural proclivity to stand up, whatever the case may be, and you learn to walk, right? So the AI thinks like that. So there's not this big, massive database behind it, but here's what it has. It has really good memory. So it's a brain that has like a photographic memory. So it remembers things and it remembers neural connections. And as it has more and more experiences, it connects those things more and more, just like we do. So as the AI ages, just like as we age, it becomes more and more wise. But it does it at a really exponential rate. Now, when you tie that to robotics, and you can then go out and make a thing happen based on that thought, it gets to be really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And when you get into the third base of that, which is no code software, and you can take that, now you can take that AI prompting and this little robotic scripting and stick it into a piece of no code software that you can put out into the world, where you press a button and a thing happens, but nobody really knows what's going on back here. It gets really interesting because everybody can be in the SaaS business. Everybody can be in the anything business, frankly. And you can either or both. You can use it to reduce your workload, right? Or do things that were previously impossible to do. Like we built a 95,000 page website in 20 hours about 2 weeks ago. But the AI did it. We did it with the assistance of the AI and some bots and a few specialty tools that tied things together. And the actual building of the site only took about 4 minutes. The 20 hours was the AI running scripts and building data and doing all kinds of stuff. Previously, it would have cost me $300,000-$400,000 to do this project because I had the project scoped out, and we ended up doing it for a couple $100 worth of API costs.
Wow.
So it allows you to do things that you previously would have thought were impossible. And that the question I pose to people after I just beat in their brain that if you don't get this, your odds of becoming extinct in your business are really, really high. That's the negative side. The positive side is try to, as much as you can, imagine that you have 10,000 of the smartest people you've ever known in your life standing at your front door right now, willing to work for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, practically for free. What would you have them do?
Right.
And listen to the things that you thought you would do before and realize how small those things are. Because this is a time to take a moonshot. It's not a time, well, man, I'll just write better blog posts. That'll be great. So stupid, right? What's a moonshot that you can take before the world catches up? Because people will catch up, just like, back in the day. I think the first website I ever had built, I paid $20,000 to have an e-com store built for me.
Wow.
It was terrible, but I paid 20 grand. Today, I can get somebody on Fiverr to build me a Shopify store for $50, because as the markets get more and more efficient, the prices tend to really come down as more and more people know how to do things. Very few people get this so far. OpenAI has about 11 million daily users right now. Only about 5% of them, so about 500,000 people globally, even have a $20 paid account. So you're talking about 0.00003% of the population have a $20 paid account with ChatGPT. And most of them, if you ask 10 people, hey, have you tried? Yeah, I've been playing with that. That's always the word you'll get back. Yeah, I've been playing with that. Yeah, I played with it a little bit. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm going to look at it someday soon. Man, that's crazy. It's like the invention of fire.
Yeah.
So no, I'm just going to sit here in the cold and I'm going to play with matches, or I'll learn how to build a fire,
So let's use Front Row Dads as an example. So you've got a business, a membership community, online and in-person events, doing $2 million a year. They want to grow to $20 million a year. What does a membership community be? How are they utilizing ChatGPT, AI in that particular business? How would you be advising them, or how would you scale it?
There'd be a lot of ways to build that business, right? One is, understanding like little small purchases, like maybe your hats or whatever, or gear that you could sell that would attract a certain audience. So you could use AI image generation to generate designs for you, mock-ups for you, come up with 10 different swag things using OpenAI. using Midjourney, put them on your group and say, hey, if you could have any one of these 10 things, which one would you rather have? And you haven't sold one yet, right? Hey, if everybody will vote, for everybody who votes, I'm going to give you one of these as soon as we choose a winner or whatever. So that's a very small thing, right? You could do a lot of, you could have guides and SOPs built for people to run their businesses by. ChatGPT does a beautiful job at writing SOPs, and most businesses don't have good SOPs. So you could have, that could be a benefit for your people, that you're going to give them SOPs to run by, which is, if you don't realize the value of an SOP, you've never bought a franchise. Because when you buy a franchise, all you get is a bunch of SOPs, right? Yeah. So people are looking for operating systems to run their business by. So maybe Front Row Dads creates an operating system for business. You can create all sorts of additional member benefits for your members that are incredibly valuable to them, but don't require a great deal of your time to generate, right? But just because you know how to use the engines a little better maybe than they do, right? You could teach them more of it as you do it, right? So they can learn how to incorporate these things into their businesses, train their employees. We won't hire anybody right now that's not totally committed to learning the AI tools, because, I have an outsourced company called Scalewind, and we have all these different sub outsource things like realestateassistant.com and, WoW support and all that. We're all of our people now are AI, we call them tech enabled outsourcers. So, where I was running a 1-to-1 client to employee ratio, or 1-to-2, I can run a 1-to-5 or a 1-to-8 now, depending on the vertical, because the outsourcers using AI tools to generate the output, and the client gets more output, and the outputs better with far fewer errors, right? So, teaching your people how to convince their employees to embrace AI, which is hard because the employees themselves are typically afraid of it, but they shouldn't,
right?
They shouldn't be. But yeah, there's all sorts of things that you can do, but really before you get to using AI to grow your business, there's 6 things that you can do in any business. When I bring people in to do private days, I have a board. We do a number of things, but one of the things is a board that we have where we have these 6 columns, and it's product, markets, offers, methods, traffic, geography. And most businesses have a 1 at the top of each of those columns. They're selling one thing to one market, one way, with one offer, using one source of traffic in one geographical market. And if I can just write a 2 at the top of each of those columns and execute on that, there's your 2-to-20.
Right.
They'll give you your 10 times growth. If you can just get a 2 at the top of each of those columns, if you've got 2 products to sell to 2 markets with 2 different offers, it doesn't sound that bad when you look at it that way, because there's a compounding effect to that. And, but for every step of that along the way, AI and automation works. Maybe you do front row moms next.
That's so funny. I was literally just thinking,
there's your
exactly
second
that.
market,
Yeah, right.
right?
Exactly.
Or maybe, maybe, I don't know how your thing works or how you sell it, but maybe you, instead of just having one entry point, you have 3 entry points. If you look at businesses like the Gap, is a good example, because the Gap's got Old Navy is their entry point brand. The Gap is their midpoint brand, and Banana Republic is their high point brand. So
Nice.
they want you from cradle to grave. They want you putting kids' clothes on at Old Navy and buying your first suit to go to your first job from Banana Republic. And again, a lot of people, maybe like you, I have no idea your business. I have no insight to your business at all. But maybe you've got a one size fits all offer, and that's where most of your marketing effort goes. It typically is a bad idea, so maybe you have more entry points, more offers.
Sure.
Instead of just getting traffic from affiliates, you get traffic from Facebook and affiliates, or you get traffic from Facebook and Google, or you get traffic from Instagram, Facebook, and Google. If an offer works with one traffic source, it tends to work with multiple traffic sources. But people tend to get stuck on, well, I sell this one thing to this one market this way with a webinar, and I get all my webinar registrants on Facebook, and we only work in the United States.
Could AI answer that question of, hey,
100%.
you throw this in there and you ask for different, how do you turn that 1 to a 2?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Cool.
Be an easy question for it.
Yeah.
It'd be a really easy question. So just stuff like that is coming up with frameworks for your people to follow that.
That's interesting.
Like that framework.
Okay. So let's say there's
made that up. I don't have any patent on it or anything. Anybody can use it that wants to use it, but it's a good framework.
There's an owner out there and he's hearing what you're saying, right? And it's like, I know a friend. I know a guy, Perry.
I'm asking for a friend.
I'm asking for a friend, right? So, he's hearing this, learning, yes, we got to get our team on board. Then how does an individual go about learning in this space? Do they hire an AI coach? Do they go to a specific place? Do they tell their team, yet, hey guys, you go figure it out?
I would not doubt at all there will be AI coaches if there's not already AI coaches, right? I think, yeah. And I think one of the biggest opportunities, by the way, and I'll talk about learning in a second too, but one of the biggest opportunities right now is AI integration. So if I were starting a brand new company tomorrow and I didn't have anybody to sell anything to, I go out and do trade shows and stuff and say, hey, look, I know how to do all this AI stuff. I'll charge you a fortune to integrate it into your business, because everyone's going to have it, just like everyone had to have a website. But this is even deeper, because when you start looking at, I don't want to discount this, but when you start looking at, everybody's talking about AI, right? It is really at most a third of the puzzle, right? You need AI that ties into robotics, that produces a result that maybe your outsourcers can pull the levers on, or you build a piece of easy software. So like, for instance, at its base core, right? If you take AI, I was speaking at an event not long ago. You probably know Stefan Georgi. You know Stefan?
No, I don't.
Copy Accelerator. So he's been teaching AI copywriting for a long time. So I went to his group, and I'm expecting a pretty advanced group, right? I said, well, how many of you guys have been using AI to write? And most of the hands went up. How many of you used ChatGPT? And most of their hands went up. I said, how many of you have an OpenAI API key? 300 people, 2 have one. Well, ChatGPT is kind of useless to me compared to OpenAI's playground and the API key, because I can take that API key, tie it into like Google Sheets, for instance, and I can pull a bunch of data into Google Sheets, use OpenAI key to go in and manipulate that data, pull prompts on different cells, give me back feedback, and build this big, robust databases, either in of information. Like, for instance, the site I was talking about, silentconventions.com, and I've been wanting to put a directory of all the conventions in the world under conventions.com, but it was going to cost $300,000 to do it. So we paid a company to go out and scrape all the information they could find from every directory about every event going on in the world, because that's not copywritten material. This is just listings, right? And then we got the URLs of all those. And then we went out and grabbed screenshots. We had the bot go grab screenshots of every one of those sites' homepage. And then we had the AI go out and read the homepage and write us a 750 word description of the event and drop that into the spreadsheet. And once all that data was gathered, we mapped it to a website and we hit one button and boom, you got a 95,000 page website, right? That was something that previously was impossible, right? It was absolutely impossible up until a few months ago, but very few people have caught on yet, right? So there's going to be a giant amount of integration work to be done. I think the next big agencies will be integration agencies, no doubt about it. And they get paid. If you call some of them right now, they'll barely take your call. And when they do, they're like 6 figures to start. Because they're doing this stuff for really big companies. But there's going to be a time, and the time is like right now, that mid-size and smaller companies are going to want tech integration specialists, but they may want to coach. Honestly, where I learned most of my stuff about this? YouTube.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Is that where you learn? I was going to ask you that, like how you get all this insight and information. What's your learning schedule look like?
I think right now, the greatest source of information for all this is YouTube.
Wow.
And the best money I've spent in a long time is buying the $11 premium YouTube account that doesn't have commercials. And so many people like me, there's 2 sides of that coin, right? I'm taking every course I've ever made right now and putting it on YouTube for free because I just want more people exposed to my work, because I make most of my money from higher ticket clients that are established business owners that either want to partner or want us to come and do tech integration work or whatever. But there's people are putting out extraordinary content there, and I wouldn't invest in anybody's course, well, except mine, maybe. I'm just kidding. I don't even have one. But coursework's going to be obsolete in 60 days. I just did an event that was, I think, a very successful event. We had 400 and some people at our event. It was big, nice big event here on AI. And I was chatting with a friend of mine, and probably we ended that last Wednesday, and probably 10% of what I taught is obsolete.
Wow.
There have been different solutions.
That's crazy.
Different solutions that have come out, and better stuff has come out in just a week, right? Because all the ChatGPT plugins are coming, and autonomous AI just came out into the market that goes out and searches the web and then manipulates the search data that it finds into your ChatGPT queries. And so there's all kinds of really crazy cool stuff that's happened in a week, right? That really changes the landscape of everything. And, ChatGPT 5 is going to be out in December. So there'll be a whole new ball of wax to deal with, and, all these plugins. And OpenAI is one of about 70 large language models that are out there, 70. So it's not going to be the leader forever. It's going to be like, nobody will ever be bigger than Yahoo, right? Yeah, there will be. And chances are they'll be overtaken by somebody else. And OpenAI just bought a physical robotics company so that they can tie physical robots to OpenAI, which makes really, really smart robots. So we're going to enter within 24 months or so a period of infinite intelligence where it's probably going to make us dumber as humans, just like GPS made us dumber, right? My kid can't drive across town without a GPS because they've had it their whole life, right? But when you have ultimate intelligence, then you're just multiplying your ambition and your will through these tools. But there's also going to be some other really big changes. Altman thinks that within 24 months, this technology will basically be free for everybody. There'll be no marketplace to sell it. So it's going to be like it comes free with your internet connect thing, right? So unlimited intelligence comes free with your internet connection, right? So, but it's also going to solve really big problems. He thinks that the cost of energy may be as 90% lower within the next 5 years. Big fat brain that's better than all of us, like they're predicting within 24 months, it'll be 1,000,000 times smarter than Einstein. Not 1,000 times smarter, but like 1,000,000 times smarter than Einstein. So it's going to solve big battery storage problems that normal humans haven't been able to figure out. And it's going to solve some space travel stuff that we haven't been able to solve. And it's going to solve agricultural growing problems that we've not been able to solve. And just to mess your mind up a little bit, if you want to go all the way out there on the limb,
You already have.
Well, today, for instance, I was watching this amazing, again, YouTube, right? Where this guy's got a little plastics grinder he's built. It's about so big that looks like a paper shredder, and it's like $500. And he's got a 3D printer and he's got a filament maker. So filament maker's been around a while. So when he uses a plastic bottle at his house, he throws it in the grinder and it grinds it up into chips. Well, the chips get thrown into this filament maker that spits out plastic line that's so big, right? The plastic line now goes into his 3D printer. So if he wants a new dustpan, he doesn't buy one at Walmart.
He just prints it.
He just prints it.
Stop.
So, yeah,
that's so great.
So think about this now. When you imagine that, right now, today, I'm about to do a video demo on this. So I'll send it to you after I do it. But right now, today, I can imagine a thing on Midjourney. You know what Midjourney is?
Yes.
So I can imagine an item on Midjourney, and I can say, show me ergonomically correct dustpan, and it's going to give me 4 or 5 images. And I say, okay, I like image 1. Say, now show me that from 4 different angles. Show me the front, the back, and the 2 sides of that. And it's going to do that for me, right? And it's going to give me that. I can take that over to Blender, which is an app that's inside Google. It's a 3D modeling app. And there's a little plugin for OpenAI. And OpenAI takes that image, puts it into Blender, and it makes a 3D model of that thing, right? That didn't exist 10 minutes ago, right? And I can take that to my 3D printer on my kitchen counter and make it in about 45 minutes. But that 3D printer cost $300.
My brain is melting right now.
It costs $300. So if you're, Altman's big thing is, yes, there's going to be a universal basic wage. That is an absolute fact. It's going to happen. People are all going to have less money for the most part. The lower half's going to have less money. The bigger half's going to have way more money, but everything's going to be so much cheaper because, everything, we can print plastics right now, super easy. We can print ceramics right now for $5,000. You can buy it right now, but they'll be cheaper. You can print ceramic items. For $20,000, you can print metal items, but all those technologies are going to shrink in cost to where basically everything you've been throwing away, you're going to be able to save that in a recycle bin and make your own crap with it, right?
Wow.
So designers that design these models those are going to be a cool thing, but you're not going to buy hey, I need a bolt that fits this thing. You're just going to print one. I mean, you don't need to go to the hardware store anymore. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah. And you can print meat right now. You can print meat. You can buy a meat printer. They're expensive. You think I'm nuts. I know you think I'm crazy, but look it up.
I love it. This show just kept building and building and building. And we're at the pinnacle right here.
Well, you get your meat, right? You just get a jug of meat gunk and you blop, 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 and print you a porterhouse, right? Print you a Wagyu steak, right? In a matter of a few minutes. And we're having Wagyu for dinner tonight, or burgers or whatever you want. And then my Max was showing me the other day, she bought this thing called Gardien. I don't know if you've seen this or not. Gardyn.
No.
It's 1 foot by 2 foot thing that grows enough vegetables to feed 2 people in your living room. It uses, it's LED light. It uses something like $8 worth of light a month and 1 jug of nutrient crap that you pour in. It's like $10. And if you've got a family of 4, you get 2 Gardens. They make all your veggies fresh off the pike, right? You save your food scraps as compost for outside if you want it. If you want to compost a live garden, you print your meat, you print the plate you eat the meat on, right? everything, this is all not futuristic, dude. This is right now.
No.
You can do 100% of that. It's the equipment for some of that stuff is really expensive, but the equipment for some of it is dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Plastic 3D printers now for plastics are a few $100 on Amazon. Laser cutters, laser engravers are hundreds of dollars now. I've got a factory back here with, $300,000-$400,000 worth of laser cutters in it. And you can buy a little one at home now to do the same thing my equipment will do for $300-$400 for your own stuff. So if you want to cut your own laser crap, it's $300-$400. I mean, it's the whole world she is a changing. And the more intelligence that you put on the front of that robotics, imagine what you can accomplish.
Yeah. Oh man.
So I hope that didn't mess anybody up.
Well, it did. It did. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight for sure. But I love it, and I want to see if I can put a bow on this and tie it all together by just saying that, when I first started learning about you, Perry, I wasn't like many people who interview you who are like, I've been a huge Perry Belcher fan for years. I was like, that wasn't me. I knew your name. And I just knew enough people who loved you. And then when I started learning about you, what I was fascinated by is how you learn and how creative you are in your learning and the types of things you were learning and how you would grow things and how you would think. That is what I really fell in love with when I started learning about you and your world and your impact. I love the stories of you overcoming adversity. And I share all that because I feel like that's been the running theme through this whole conversation is like, you've had some challenges, you had some failures along the way, and you said it in this show, you just wake up optimistic, and you just keep going and creating that. To me, I mean, look at the AI stuff is fascinating. You just blew my mind with the last 5 minutes. But I can tell you that from a very human perspective, going back to you as a man and your time here with the Front Row Dads podcast, what I'm taking away is your infinite intelligence, not the infinite intelligence of the AI system, but yours, and like how you are waking up with a fresh set of eyes and a childlike curiosity, if I could say that, and just going about having fun. Because you're not doing it for money anymore. You might say you are. I know you talked about like buying rolls and cash and all these things, but the truth is you don't need any of that. I think you're doing it because you like to play, and I think you like to build, and I think you like to create, and I think you like to tinker and things like that. That's my observation. Whether it's true or not, it's my story. And I just want to say thank you for that, because that to me is really inspiring. And it just happened to be these other things that we talked about along the way were part of the ingredients of the conversation. But I'm really appreciating that part of you, and I just want to honor you and say that to you directly.
Well, thank you so much. If you get a chance, your audience can read. There's a book by Douglas Brockman called Driven, and Cowsum and I have a group around that concept. But one of the things, the book is not that great. But to be frank, and not to offend Doug Brockman, because Doug Brockman's an amazing guy. But the first half of the book is brilliant. The second half of the book didn't connect to me, right? But it might to some of your readers. But basically, he talks about the difference between, that 5 to 8% of the world that are still have a hunter mentality versus a farmer mentality. And it's the hunter farmer parallels been drawn in mental health for a long time. And the downer is a lot of people with a hunter personality become psychotic and have all kinds of problems. They tend to have addictive personalities. But the ones that like the Elon Musk of the world, or the Jeff Bezos of the world, with this hunter mentality, they're always, they always have their eye on the horizon. They never look behind them at what they've done. They never, I don't say build, they shouldn't, but they do build on their success, but they're always thinking about, what's next. I got to meet Mark Cuban, was kind of cool years ago. And he said, man, everything that I wake up every morning thinking about the people behind me that are trying to take what I have.
Yeah.
And I know there's hungry, smart, young bucks out there, as I always say, that want to take what I have. And God bless them. They'll get their share. I promise you, I'm going to be worm food one of these days. So you can but and that's a transference of wealth. And there's a great transference of wealth right now.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the older generation, this is just going to accelerate the transference of wealth, because
Totally.
there's a lot of people, older generations, who just are not going to catch on.
Yeah.
With me, when I was coming up, it was the 50, 60-year-old business owners that were like, I don't understand the internet.
Yeah.
So they kind of bowed out. And, we had a funny story. When first business I was ever in was a candle supply business, and it was operated. There was one lady, Barker Candle Supply, been in business 32 years. She had probably 50% of the market. Everybody loved her. They called her Mall Barker. And I started off competing in the candle supply business online. And about a year in, I got a call from her. And they said, Mrs. Barker from Barker Candle Supply is on the phone. She wants to talk to you. So I got on the phone with her. This wasn't too long after I talked to Bezos, by the way. And I said, well, hey, Miss Barker, how are you? We've never had a chance to meet. I said, it's really nice to meet you. And she said, oh, it's fine. Nice to meet you, Perry. I've heard a lot of things. She said, I just wanted to call you and tell you that you won. And I said, what do you mean, Miss Barker? She said, well, we're going to shut down our doors after 32 years. I just think that we're not catching up to the times. And I'm like, oh no, I felt really bad. Sweet little old lady that everybody loved. I put her out of business. I didn't mean to. That wasn't my intention. But she was tired, and I'm sure she'd made plenty of money, and she didn't want to take another round at it. Right. And so there's going to be a huge transference of wealth.
Yeah.
And it's going to come down to what it's always come down to. It's going to come down to those who embrace technology or those who fight it. The last guy that sold buggy whips, I promise you, sold a really good buggy whip, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Bar was better, and that. So if you embrace the technology, I think you'll be really happy that you did. And if I can help you in any way, let me know. And whatever I can do for you guys, the community, I'm happy to do.
Thanks, Perry. I appreciate your time today. This has been awesome. I feel like this is a good point to wrap up. You've been very generous with your time. I really want to honor you for that, pouring into the brotherhood here. Tiger, my son, is texting me, telling me we're late for an appointment. So I got to go be dad. And where would you send people, Perry, to go connect with you, to learn more about you?
There's really not much about me, I don't have a lot of places even to join a list or anything right now. I've been kind of, I've kind of gotten away from the teaching business for the most part, because I do a lot more than I teach. But if somebody wants to, if they need me individually, I'll give you I'll give everybody my cell phone number, and everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I answer these texts. So my cell is 512-971-5049. If you need help with something, if it's something where you got a question, you just need a minute or two, I'm happy to hop on or send you a resource or whatever. If you've got a business that's kind of stuck in that $2-3 million range, and you want to get it out of the mud, it might be a fit. Very likely might not be. I only do 1 or 2 projects a year like that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, just look out for events. Join my Facebook page or follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn or somewhere, and they'll, my efficient marketing team will suck you into the, never-ending list of spam offers that I'll send you. for my events usually. Really, all I do now are a lot of live events. I don't really do a lot of courses and teaching and stuff much anymore because the stuff is so outdated by the time, you record it and get it into course form. I feel bad selling it.
I hear you. Perry, thank you, man. Appreciate it. I look forward to being in touch. This has been very enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And any help you guys ever need with AI stuff, I'm always glad to help at AI or robotics or any of that.
Thank you, sir.